ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct privilege and honor on behalf of the Caribbean Tourism Organization and the government and people of St. Kitts and Nevis to welcome all delegates to the annual CTO State of the Industry Conference. I thank you for choosing to be here in the midst of so many other competing demands on your time and money. I extend an especially warm welcome to our very special guest, Congresswoman Dr. Christensen, who readily accepted my invitation, even though she's in the midst of her very busy re-election campaign. Of course, she's been elected so many times that we have no doubt that the election will not be a problem. I especially welcome to St. Kitts and Nevis the Honorable Minister from the Seychelles, who has traveled a very long way to get here. And I thank my fellow Caribbean ministers and commissioners for finding the time in their very demanding schedules to visit our little piece of the Caribbean. Our Right Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Douglas, is away at World Bank meetings in Japan, and he has asked me to add his words of welcome to all visitors on his behalf. Allow me also to take this opportunity to publicly thank my personal assistant, Nevis Smith. Is she in the audience anywhere? There she is. Our permanent secretary in our ministry, Mrs. Patricia Martin, who is sitting right in front here. And the CEO of the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, who you've heard on the stage earlier, Mrs. Rosita Jeffers, and the others in our ministry and in our tourism authority for their support and for having made it possible for me to carry out my CTO responsibilities and duties over the past 2 years. I also say a special thank you to Hugh Riley and his CTO team for putting up with what I would describe as my aggressive obsession with achieving organizational change in a relatively short 2 years. Hugh and I have worked very closely together on behalf of our region, and I'm proud to say that I've benefited tremendously from his partnership. Hugh is one of the hardest working people I know, and his unswerving commitment to the future of CTO and growing our Caribbean brand has gained my admiration and confidence. To me, it seems that the 2 years have passed by very quickly. And I definitely know that I have aged considerably in the process, because it shows. You only have to look at my head and you'll see how much hair I've lost. But there's a local saying that if you lose hair from the front of your head, you're brainy. And if you lose hair from the back, you're sexy. As you can see, I have lost hair from both the front and back. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. On a more serious note, the good news is that we have created a sound platform for strategic change, and I'm confident that I'm handing over a stronger and more achievable vision for CTO's improved effectiveness. 2 years ago, there was an urgent need to change the perception by several CTO members that our Caribbean brand marketing strategy in North America and Europe was not providing an adequate return on our investment. Consequently, getting member countries to contribute to the CTO marketing fund has been and continues to be a major challenge. At the same time, travel consumer demands and expectations have changed dramatically, aided and empowered by the rapid rise of social media, with the top travel priority becoming the desire by guests to enjoy greater value for the same or even less money. Meanwhile, cash-strapped governments on both sides of the Atlantic began looking more to the travel and tourism sectors as a way to balance their debt-ridden budgets. International aviation has therefore become a more attractive source of taxation for governments desperate for revenue. The airline passenger duty, APD, tax in the UK is an example of such taxation gone crazy. The structure of the British APD is not only prejudicial to long-haul travel to the Caribbean, but it has sent the level of ticket-related taxes to an unprecedented high, raising nearly £3 billion annually for the British government to use on domestic programs which have nothing to do with aviation. In CTO, we believe that aviation tariffs should be kept at a minimum. It is our strong opinion that tariffs should facilitate the delivery of proper security and better service at airports and enhance travel-related developments to result in more people traveling, more cargo, and better value for the traveler. We disagree with the British government that aviation should be taxed at unlimited levels for balancing budgets. Unfortunately, in spite of CTO's best advocacy efforts, UK Chancellor George Osborne has maintained his stance towards the Caribbean. He is still not inclined to make any adjustments to his present discriminatory aviation tax structure, in which he taxes an airline ticket from London to Hawaii at a lower rate than for a ticket from London to St. Kitts, which is a much shorter distance away. In a letter last month to CARICOM's chairman, Prime Minister Kenny Anthony, the Chancellor said that, and I quote, "APD makes a vital contribution to the public finances, and it is important that revenues from the duty are maintained," end of quote. On the other side of the Atlantic, despite US federal taxes that already constitute 20% of airline ticket prices, new proposals are pending in the US Congress that include additional travel-related fees. Particularly with the increase in airfares to the Caribbean, consumers who are paying more to get to our region expect more from our destination when they arrive. This heightened demand by travel consumers for value dictates that we must provide them with the best possible return on expenditure. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't need to remind you that the ongoing raises in the price of fuel have also dramatically impacted both the airlines and the cruise lines that serve our region. In response to the double whammy of increased taxation and higher fuel costs, airlines have done the natural thing: raise ticket prices, implement new fees, and pass the cost on to passengers. Cruise lines, on the other hand, have slowed down their sailing speeds and minimized the use of airline seats in their own travel packages. This has resulted in the stifling of home porting in our region, new itineraries with shorter cruising distances from more US mainland home ports, and reduced market share for the islands of the Southern Caribbean. During the past year, CTO has somewhat successfully lobbied the FCCA, the Florida Caribbean Cruise Association, against any further reduction in summer cruising, which was being caused by an increasing redeployment of ships away from the Caribbean to Europe. I'm pleased to let you know that last week, at a meeting in Curacao, the FCCA announced that their operations committee has actively begun exploring ways and means to rebuild summer cruising in our region. All this has taken place at the same time that too many Caribbean people are being robbed of the opportunity to visit each other wherever and whenever we want to. Every year, approximately 1.5 million Caribbean travelers do business with each other, party together, join our loved ones at family events, disappear for a weekend getaway, or jump to our heart's content at incredible carnivals, festivals, or sporting events. But for the past 6 years, those numbers have been falling. Between 2006 and 2011, in the OECS countries alone, we welcomed 115,000 fewer Caribbean visitors. Colleagues, I speak especially to my ministerial colleagues, we simply cannot afford for our own domestic travel market to be stifled any further. Our smaller hotels and guest houses are hurting badly from the slowdown, especially in intra-Caribbean business. And we owe it to all travel consumers to provide the means to travel across our region as frequently and as cost-effectively as possible. You and I know that there are a variety of reasons for the decline in intra-Caribbean air travel. The global economic downturn has certainly affected our region severely. The high cost of travel tickets is a major deterrent. Poor interline connectivity. I myself experienced going to Curacao via St. Martin, where 2 airlines that I had to use had absolutely no relationship. I had to run from one plane to the next and leave my bag behind to get here in time to go and sit with my very dear friend across the aisle in Parliament last week, Friday. Right? Parliamentarian Mr. Sean Richards. Good to see you in the audience, sir. My bag eventually showed up the following morning. But there clearly is a problem of interconnectivity which should be addressed by the various airlines, and we have to facilitate that. Added to that is the inconsistency of the service that our regional airlines and airports deliver, the immigration barriers we erect, and the overzealous obsession by our security officials to check and recheck our own Caribbean people to the point of what can sometimes be described as willful harassment. I put that in for you, Mr. Secretary General. You put out a social media blast the other morning based on an experience he was having in an island that will go nameless. Facing such, well, all of these factors serve as potential inhibitors to travel within our region and provide understandable excuses for prospective travelers to stay at home or to make a decision to travel elsewhere. Facing such critical issues over the past 2 years, it became even clearer to me that a strong CTO was our region's best way to contend with them. I felt it was critical that we rebuild the confidence of our members in CTO as a regional tourism policy leader and change the organization to be more effective in finding solutions than it has ever been. CTO has always found solutions. The demand on it for finding solutions more frequently and at a faster rate is tremendous. And we knew we needed to do things differently in order to get better results. So we brought in McKinney Rogers, a top international business consulting firm, to analyze our operations, help us more thoroughly understand the shift in marketplace, and become better positioned to service the needs and expectations of our diverse membership. We had a report on that project this evening, and we can see that it's still work in progress, but a lot has been achieved. Given the urgent challenges we are facing in the marketplace, we strengthen our partnership with the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, CHTA. I'm really pleased to see the participation over the last couple of years of the CHTA in our events and reciprocally. We re-energized our joint venture Caribbean Tourism Development Company, CTDC, with a view to achieving greater specialization in addressing our marketing and business development needs. That is also work in progress. But as a first step in developing a stronger marketing program, we are completely redesigning the CaribbeanTravel.com website to be more visually pleasing and user-friendly, with additional capabilities to drive actual increased online bookings to our region. Ladies and gentlemen, it is partly our own failure as a region to sustain adequate levels of investment in the marketing of the Caribbean and the development of our varied tourism assets that has caused a decline in global market share for Caribbean tourism over the past 10 years. That is why I'm so convinced that the future development of CTDC is one of the most urgent challenges facing CTO in the short term. Contrary to what some people seem to think, airplanes, cruise ships, and hotels cannot fill themselves. And it's not a Minister of Tourism that does it either. It is a concerted, collaborative effort of stakeholders, led by those of us with the responsibility to lead. But too many of our tourism leaders still operate as if we just need to open our doors and consumers will automatically show up. That is not how our industry works, ladies and gentlemen. I want to remind you that CTO's market research and actual experience from previous efforts has shown that an increase in the right types of collaborative public and private sector marketing is in fact our best hope for growing the Caribbean share of the global travel market. In short, it quite simply cannot be business as usual. Ladies and gentlemen, the records will show that during my little time at the wheel, I have deliberately and steadfastly directed the attention of CTO to addressing all of the barriers to the growth of travel in our region. It is therefore not an accident that we have designed this conference to zoom in on the strategies necessary to win the collaboration of those decision makers with the power to affect change across our region. This week, we will examine innovative concepts and best practices that have not yet been tried in the Caribbean, but deserve to be properly explored. And we will highlight the kinds of hard data that CTO has a responsibility to provide. And we have some really brilliant minds combined with some excellent experiences to share with you over the next 2 days. Those of you locally who have not registered yet, registration is still open. I think just to get to hear Dr. Oleana Poon tomorrow morning is worth a lot more money than you can afford to spend, than you will be spending in this conference. Dr. Oleana Poon will be speaking about trends in the industry. And there's no better Caribbean person with a better global outlook than her. And I look forward to her presentation tomorrow morning. The onus is on all of us here, as my colleague Mrs. Jeffers said, to ensure that Caribbean people can better understand why tourism is so important to their livelihoods, and that we can all acquire the skills to better tell the Caribbean story while delivering world-class service to our customers. We must also protect our tourism industry from overtaxation. Strange to hear that coming from a government minister. Governments don't set out to overtax. Governments do what they have to do, but the private sector and organizations like CTO, we must always protect our industry from overtaxation while at the same time helping to improve our government's fiscal position. And yes, it is possible to do both at the same time. And we must set aside the petty differences that divide us so we can truly act in a united fashion and firmly position our region in the global market as the most desirable year-round warm weather destination. Ladies and gentlemen, I firmly believe that we are now on the way to achieving all of these objectives. And it is therefore in a spirit of optimism and hope that I now officially declare open this annual CTO State of the Industry Conference. Thank you very much.